Science Time with Cliff, which is a really super duper creative title, because this is, of course, my weekly Science Time with Cliff. But I'm joined by Cliff Bohm, the lead programmer for MABE, modular agent-based evolver. And I am, of course, Pocket Locker 86, a.k.a. Jay Bundy, a.k.a. the host with the most from the East Coast. We're so happy that you guys could join us. Cliff and I are just being YouTube perverts. We are stealing your government funding. The government is paying us to do science, evolutionary biology in particular, but that's not enough for us. That's not enough for us. We want to jump out on the interwebs. We want to go live. We want even more support and attention because we are terrible human beings. So, but how you doing today, Cliff?
Now I'm doing great. I know what. I had no idea that that's what I was doing, but now that I know,
now that you know you're part of the great science conspiracy to
I mean, I feel like I have meaning now. I'm doing something real, affecting the world.
But yeah, so we were having this talk about sort of the balance between science communication and science and where do we go with all this stuff? But yeah, I think it's really it's gonna be a tough road ahead, right? Like I think what I'm doing is something that there isn't currently like a good model for, and the one thing I think that makes me like confident more than anything is that right now I have the support of my advisors. Like right now, I can show up like this to a Travisano lab meeting, and everybody's just kind of like, all right, that's Jay, and let's just go ahead on and do our meeting, you know? And I'm teaching with Rob, right? And Rob's like, hey, Jay, let's work on some grants, and we could get you some more equipment in the studio, and you could like make some more videos, right? like he's into it. And so I'm like, this opportunity is probably not ever going to happen again, right? Like if some university actually hires me as an assistant professor, like that's not going to be the time to go exploring, expressing yourself on the internet, right? So I was like, if I have this window where my advisors aren't going to fire me for doing this, then we should go for it. But to that end, right? It's a weird thing because, as you know, this whole science thing is like publish or perish, right? So the cachet is your university teaching, and certainly at a R1, the type of institutions we work at, it's your research. And so it's going to be kind of weird to get a YouTube community and all that stuff behind the idea of the actual scientific reality. Like, are people going to enjoy watching me develop MABE? Are they going to enjoy, oh, you heard that thing about the LNCA experiment? Well, today I'm going to be working on revising a paper for A-Life with Charles Lefree and Rich Lenski, right? But I'm going to just go for it, right? Like, I'm going to go for it, let the chips fall where they may, because I think in the end, if it does work out, it's a hit big or miss big type of proposition, right? Like when I did I don't know if you saw my evolution talk, right? But I did an evolution talk that was fully in WWE character with like entrance music.
I saw.
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw enough.
People love that, right? Like it went over.
Yeah.
The chat was super into it. Right, like, but that was crazy risky to broadcast it live and have a live chat. And like I said, the guy from Evolution sent me an email. Are you sure this is the right talk? Right, like because he was trying to intervene right before I committed career suicide. So it's definitely out there. And then like when we did the we had to do the undergraduate diversity and evolution thing, and I did that presentation with Rodrigo, who's a grad student in the lab. Rodrigo's like, yo, man, you got to do the whole bit. I was like, Rodrigo, really? For like the UDE program? He's like, man, just do it. Like, let's do it together. Let's figure out what it's like. Like, let's just go for it. And I was like, all right. And we did the whole thing. And the students, they were so into it. He said after, he's like, man, they thought that was so cool. He's like, they're really excited about the program. And, you know, I did the whole bit. Like they were like, how'd you get to be so cool? And I was like, I told them, I was like, I do science for this sweet stacks of cash, you know, like, but yeah, so you're looking for that university that says, oh, this guy's doing something and we want to try something. And so they've got to be willing to think outside the box, but there's going to be a lot of places that say, hey, this just doesn't fit with our image or what we're trying to do or what we're about. And so I'm okay with that, right? Like I said, it's going to be a hard no most places, but I'm looking for those couple places that are with it. What's up, YouTube punk? What's up, Satan's little helper? I see you. Go fuck yourself. What's up, Nerdsy? Nerdsy, you are part of my GTA motorcycle club. You've been tuning into these counter-apologetic streams. Now there's some science streaming. Nerdsy, are you trying to become a real nerd? Is that what's happening, Nerdsy? Nerdsy's trying to branch out. Nerdsy's out here doing more than gaming, all right? Appreciate that, fam. Also, appreciate all you that are going to watch this later. Now that I'm actually getting more viewers, the reality has shifted. Most people don't actually watch me live. They actually catch this stuff later. It's a little unbelievable that people actually go back and watch these things and find them entertaining, but I'm incredibly grateful to all you. I want to touch on something Cliff was talking about earlier, which is sort of the fact that, and I'm going to paraphrase, but you basically said you don't get a lot out of like seeing a evolutionary biologist debate a flat earther, right? Type deal. And I've tried to make this point. I've said most evolutionary biologists don't, right? Like I said, I kind of made this point. If you put 100 professional biologists in a room, I'd be surprised if 3 of them think it's worth their time to actually have a conversation with these people. And would you say it's that I was just being fair to that sentiment, and you were kind of speaking to that sentiment in most scientists?
Yeah, because I mean, the evidence is incredibly clear to anyone who's working on it. And if you spend all your time working on this, and then you have to talk to someone who basically all that they do is their entire focus is just I'm just gonna try to needle the details. I've read something somewhere that tries to poke a hole in something, and that's all it does. It just tries to poke a hole in it. And the thing for most of those things, yeah, it's complicated. It's really complicated. And if you don't understand it, then you can totally, you can simplify it to the point of a straw man argument and then say, oh, look, that thing doesn't work. And it's like, no, but I'm sorry, it does. If you want to sit down, give me like 4 hours and I'll explain to you why it works. But I can't do it in 2 minutes.
And that was one of the...
I can't go a modern day debate and in that format in 1 hour covering 20 topics. I can't educate anyone on anything. And so, I mean, that's it's interesting to listen to it, to hear how people try to do it. But it would be just frustrating to actually engage in those.
Yeah, and then would you also say, because I think that's totally fair, right? And so the other thing that's interesting about that, and she talked about this in a little, Gutsick Gibbon in her video. We were going to talk about the Gutsick Gibbon video, but Cliff had already seen it, which is awesome. I appreciate you watching that, bud. And we've been over it, so we're good on the channel.
Yeah. So it was actually just kind of funny because Jay was like, oh, I had this thing happen and it was really cool. And then the next morning I get up, no, there's a new video. Let's see, it's a team up on some evolutionist guy. Let's see what this is all about. And I'm like, oh, of course it's Jay. And the whole thing, and I'm like, yeah, that's pretty much, the best you could do. There you go.
So that was super awesome. But she talked about this, right? How a lot of these concepts you can kind of go to the incredulity because without a certain amount of background in certain scientific disciplines, some concepts you even kind of need a little bit of an interdisciplinary background because you got to put, kind of disparate pieces together. And if you don't have that, then it just seems kind of like gibberish. And like she said, if you don't have a basic foundation in algebra, you can pick up a calculus textbook and go, well, how can anybody buy any of this? This is all nonsense. But to your point, it puts real strains on the communication because if I only have a very limited format or I only have a few minutes, I don't have time to do remediation on your scientific education right now. I'm not saying I think I'm a better human being than you are and you're not worthy of breathing oxygen. This just isn't the space.
There was a point that you made that I thought was really, it was a really strong point, and that was my inability to convince you of these facts has no bearing on whether or not they're true. And in fact, that they have been demonstrated to be true. Like I don't need to prove to you that these things are true. Like they've been demonstrated to be true. This is already done. And if I fail to communicate that to you in this discussion, that doesn't change the truth value.
Matter of fact, I just realized this as you were saying this, and I appreciate that. I'm realizing, as I said that just makes me join the ranks of every other scientist who couldn't convince you, right? Right? Like it's just add my name to the list of scientists who tried and failed to demonstrate to you, that this is what's happening. But here's the thing that's super interesting. And guys, what I'm really trying to get at is what are some of these professional challenges, because I've been trying to communicate about them to my audience. And at the same time, you and I talk about these things regularly. So I thought, man, this is a great opportunity. But what Cliff is speaking about is why it's then hard to get this type of work valued as a professional scientist, right? Like I said, I can't write a grant to the National Science Foundation that says, hey, National Science Foundation, we got some really great stuff for you. We're going to demonstrate that the Earth is indeed round. There's a lot of flat earthers out there on the internet, right? We're not going to get that grant money, right? This is a settled matter, right? You really can't even use it to say, oh, I'm teaching evolution, right? Because you're really not, right? It's damn near what we call invisible work. And this is the problem with a lot of science and outreach efforts is they just don't impact our professional CVs the way you would think in the ideal world. Like if you're not a scientist, you would think, oh, the university must love it when you guys get out there on YouTube and spread the good word. And they must be really excited when you guys are out here using your professional expertise to debunk nonsense. No, they're not. They're not. They're really like, you're wasting your time. We'd really like you to go back to your lab and like work on something that can get you some research funding and like a peer-reviewed publication. And this is not it, right? Now, what's interesting is
how many grants did that YouTube video get you?
You're right, exactly. Yeah, that's the real conversation, guys. Real talk. And I have this one little ace up my sleeve. This one little ace up my sleeve right now, and I don't know how long I'll have this ace up my sleeve. I'm hoping I'll be able to use it the rest of my life. And here's what that is. I am a Beaconite. I did all of my PhD training at a place called the Beacon Center for the Study of Evolution in Action. I was a big part of our evolution education and outreach team. Evolution education and outreach was a huge part of my dissertation. There's a whole chapter on it, right? And now my teaching mentor is Rob Pennock, who I'm trying to get you guys familiar with. Rob Pennock is a philosopher of science. He's also a digital evolution expert. He's one of the PIs at the Beacon Center. And he was the expert witness in the Kitzmiller versus Dover trial, which he testified that intelligent design creationism is not science. And I teach his Tower of Babel book alongside him in our Darwin's Law class. And in that class, we teach our students about why intelligent design creationism isn't science. We teach our students sort of about the essential epistemology of science and of evolution as a law of nature. And so the ace up my sleeve is that this is actually very related to my teaching, right? I got the one evolutionary biologist who actually thinks this stuff is really important and it's highly related to what we actually do in the classroom, right? You could essentially look at a lot of what we do in our class as a scientific approach to counter-apologetics, right? So it's a little bit of an out for me because I can actually say it's related to my work, but I've got to really nail that home. I've got to shore that up. I've got to formalize it, and I've got to deliver on that, and it's still gonna be a tough sell, right? And my research has to be there regardless, right? The research is gonna be make or break. My actual in the classroom teaching is gonna be make or break. And if I can sell some of this and package it correctly, it'll be seen as a bonus and a cherry on top that they'll go with. So yeah, just wanted to speak to that real challenge, but hopefully the opportunity. So Cliff, here's what's interesting about all that, right? Yeah. I didn't want to put myself out there as a science person, right? If you look at like Erica's content, like everything she does is centered around science, right? Like that's her gig. Like she does her science thing as a YouTube creator. Whereas like me, I'm more a variety streamer. I wanted people to do, I do a little bit of science on stream, but I do gaming and multimedia stuff. And then when I got into counter-apologetics, I went the route of trying to be entertaining. And the one thing I noticed from building content on my Twitch was that it was really helpful if people asked to hear more about my science than if I tried to tell them about it, right? Like, oh, Jay, I'd love to hear more about your research is a way different conversation than, guys, let me tell you how exciting my research about digital organisms is, right? And so I figured if I try to be the next Bill Nye the Science Guy, that's going to be tough, right? But if you're entertaining and people just get these little drops and nuggets that, you know, in your other life, you're actually a scientist, they'll start to ask questions. And with that in mind, I put a lot of effort into one, like making actual shows, right? And some of our shows, like if you don't know, I have a Jay BUNDY channel. I do like late night counter-apologetics and stuff like that. We did a lot of fun, crazy episodes, Cliff. We've done cursing pastors, child pastors, preacher to porn star to preacher. We did a whole birthday bash for the unborn when the Republicans did the Roe v. Wade stuff first, right? I'm talking about stuff that like I'm trying to be controversial. I'm trying to get your attention. It's planned. I'm singing. I'm dancing. You see what I'm saying? And none of that stuff makes a dent, right? But ironically, this random conversation I have at 1:45 in the morning against these creatards, essentially. Sorry, somebody in my neighborhood's doing something loud. That would be the thing, right? And it's so random, it's so unplanned. And then what was weird about it is I was actually doing that type of thing, again, not thinking it's going to lead to anything. The reason I did it was it's an opportunity to get a few more viewers. Because my streams were getting like 5 or 6 views at the time. That stream, LPP, he gets 30 to 50, you know? So it was an opportunity to show up on a little bit bigger of a channel. And so we took that. And then also another atheist content creator, Danny, was kind of trolling us. Like, hey guys, there's some creationists that want to talk to you. You should go over there, right? And I'm like, Danny, you're a jerk, you know? Like, I know he's just trying to get us into something. But at the same time, Danny's one of our friends. He's also a small content creator that's trying to help me out. So I know he's trying to promote me a little bit. Like, hey, Jed, this is a chance to get out there. You see what I'm saying? So who would think that sort of impromptu, unplanned thing, we've interacted with LPP a bunch of times. He's been rude to me and my whole crew, right? Like, mutes us, puts us backstage, but we just deal with it because they'll keep having us on, and we know that's just how it is in this community. Apologists are going to apologize, and so to your point, it's probably the lowest hanging thing I could do. I'm not putting any effort into it. I don't think I'm ever going to see this again, but, you know, this community picks it up, they find it interesting, and then that ends up being bigger than anything I could have, you know, planned, done, strategized for, or any of that. And then the irony of all of it, Cliff, to get back to what we were really talking about, is it ended up being about my research, right? I'm putting all this stuff out there trying to be entertaining, and like LPP did me I try to explain to people, LPP just did a huge favor for my career, because now the thing my biggest thing on the internet now is not about me cursing out God or shaking my ass and calling myself a sexy boy, right? It's actually me talking about the evolution experiment and the LNCA lab and huge time to explain digital evolution to people, right? And then Erica's up there like, yes, and here we see the death of expertise. And I'm like, oh, girl, you making me look like a rock star right now. So, yeah, I agree with you, bro. It's so weird because you would never think that, oh, yeah, this is going to be the thing. When I debate these creators, this is going to be the thing. But you just never know out here, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean... And like we were saying before, it's just, I don't know, watching that, it's just frustrating. It's frustrating to deal with. And so, you know, I was watching, I was like, kudos to you. Because there was also a certain level where, you know, when I get into these conversations, I want to be like full-on scientist, which means there's always this like you have to quantify every statement. You're like, to the best of our knowledge, it appears that. And the thing is, for people who don't understand why we do that, why we use that language, they see that as a weakness. But it's necessary. What we're saying is, no, you can't say anything with absolute certainty, because all I'm doing is I'm making educated guesses based off my results, and that allows me to make a prediction, and that allows me to design the next experiment, and then I see if the next experiment meets my expectation, and I just keep doing that. And as long as you keep meeting your expectation, you keep feeling more confident, but you never feel 100% confident. And but the thing is, people can't, they don't understand that, you know, especially people who have some theistic belief, and they know that they know that they know. So the way you were handling them, you didn't, there was no point where you actually went out on a limb and you made a positive assertion that you couldn't defend. But at the same time, you didn't do what the trap I tend to fall in on these things, where I'm trying to like make sure I'm covering everything. You were fine. I'm just going to gloss over some stuff because it doesn't matter, and you're not listening anyway, right? Especially when you're on certain points where they just weren't listening. You're like, yeah, well, you're just wrong. It's like, all right, yeah, that's the right way to do this.
I sorry again, guys. I got to apologize. I got a neighbor doing yard work, but this is great. Something else, there's so much here that I really want people to hear from you, because Cliff is somebody you're going to see. I meet with Cliff twice a week. Cliff is probably, I feel like, my most important collaborator. I'm not just saying that because he's here. I'd say that to all my other collaborators. I say this to my advisor all the time. I think when I look back, if I do attain my career goals and my lab becomes what I want it to be, it'll be because of my work with Cliff. I really genuinely believe that. Can you talk a little bit about something that I get frustrated with, which is the simulation thing, because that came up. I'm sure you had thoughts when you heard that conversation come up. And then also
you handled it. You handled it the right way, which is, you know, there's this thing that comes up that says, oh, well, you're that's just a simulation of evolution. And no, it's not. It's an instance of evolution. So that's a fine distinction, but evolution is based on three things. What are they, Jay?
Sorry, I got an echo here. Variation, inheritance, and selection.
There you go. So any system that has those three things is capable of evolution. When I'm running or when Jay's running an experiment in the computer, and it has those three things, it doesn't matter what's going on. Now it's evolution. It's not biological evolution. So it's a case of digital evolution simulating biological evolution, but it's a real case of evolution. And this is important because the dynamics that we observe in the digital evolution systems should be the same dynamics that we observe in the biological evolution systems. And in fact, if they're not, there's a really interesting question as to what's special in one of those systems that makes it perform differently.
Right. This is the win-win for us, right? Because when we discover things that work like they do in a biological system, we go, wow, that's amazing. We now have a non-biological example of the same dynamics at play, which is even bigger than just showing it repeatedly over and over again with the same biological substrate. And when it's different, we win there too, because like you said, now we've got to go, well, now it's not how evolution works. It could be this or this, right? Yeah, go ahead.
I mean, so the other thing, I think two things that are really important to keep in mind. One is, when you look at a biological system, you're talking about a massively complex system. And if you want to try to say anything about it, when we had the hardest time figuring out physics early on. Why? Because the core rule in physics is an object in motion stays in motion. It's inertia. If you don't understand inertia, then none of physics is going to make any sense. The problem is we grew up, we evolved, and we developed all of our science in the gravity well of Earth, where there's friction, where an object in motion doesn't stay in motion, where things that go up have to come down. And that is that's a special case. And so one of the big discoveries in physics that allowed us to move forward was somebody realizing, oh, wait a minute, we're in a special case here. Most of the universe is not this. Most of the universe is frictionless, and and gravity isn't playing a big role. And when you realize that, you say, oh, okay, that's the baseline. So if you want to look at biological evolution, say, oh, look, we're looking at humans. Well, humans have society, and before that they have sex. Before that they're multicellular organisms with multiple organisms. Before that, they're just
Cliff, hang on a second. Cliff, hang on a second. Oh, sorry. I was hearing people talk, and it was. I have my PlayStation party unmuted, and it was going into my headset. I was like, what is happening right now? All right. Yeah. That was just me messing up over here. Go ahead.
You just have to cut out you have so many layers of complexity. So then you can ask, what's actually causing a particular effect? How do we actually understand what's going on? And the nice thing that the digital evolution systems allow us to do is we can build a pared down system where we can control for all these factors, or just we don't put them in. I can build a system so there's no sex. I can build a system so that I'm only looking at a system that only has a single trait that I'm evolving. I don't have to worry about interactions between traits or genetic effects or any of that stuff. Or I can put them in one at a time and see how these individually affect the system. If for someone to say, oh, well, that's just a simulation, they're throwing out everything. They're throwing out our ability to actually build systems, to build models that allow us to understand these systems.
Yeah, and this touches on something I wanted to get you to chime in on, so it's a perfect segue, which is the sort of what I hate about this, right? I learned about evolution thinking about humans, right? And my master's is in biological anthropology, right? And so I learned I call it quote unquote evolution the hard way. Bones and stones, fossils, and morphology and all of this stuff, right? In other words, the evidence that we went out and we found in nature that proves this story beyond the shadow of a doubt. And my thing is, they would always say that, right? You can't find this stuff in nature. It isn't real, right? The missing links, whatever the blase and the flavonoids were. And once we did that, then the new thing is, of course, when you find it in nature, the new thing is, well, that's not really scientific. Because that's not repeatable and observable. So now what you really need to do is you really need to go show me in the lab. You can't show me evolution happening in the lab, right? And then, because I wanted to tie this back to the overall value of experimental evolution, right? And so this is what pisses me off. My background was in the bones and stones, that side of things. They deny that type of stuff when they see that type of thing because they want you to show it to them properly experimentally, right? Then you go in the LNCA lab and you show it to them in the lab and they go, oh, that doesn't count because that's in the lab. You see the trick here? You see, this don't count because it ain't in the lab. Lab don't count because it ain't in nature. Go fuck yourselves, right? But yeah, speak a little bit to the value of experimental evolution because that's the bigger framework that we're doing these digital experiments under. And to your point, that's the beauty of the models that we can test it and run it and do it over and over and over again. But go ahead, I'll let you describe it.
Yeah. So this is I'm gonna go like philosophical. My philosophy of science for a minute, and this actually. Loyalty in the last days had a couple of questions, and this will sort of address.
Oh, I didn't even know if you wanted to go there, but go ahead. Feel free to.
So here's the thing. Let's put on like hardcore philosophical hats, and let's just go. What can we know? Like, what can we actually know as people? And where I've gotten to, it's basically hard solipsism, right? What I can know is that I am confident that I exist. I don't want to say I'm positive, but I'm confident that I exist. And I'm confident that I exist because I experience things. In order to experience things, there must be a thing that has experiences. And that's pretty much all I have for sure. Now, it appears as though I can do things. It appears that I'm in a world that I'm experiencing, although I acknowledge that my experiences could be generated internally. Or my experiences could be a misinterpretation of the real world. But it appears that it's an external world, and it appears that I can do things to manipulate the world, and that those will change my experiences in predictable ways. And so, when it comes to this question of like, what's the foundation of the universe, whatever, I'm like, I don't even go there. I don't need that. My foundation starts with my personal experiences and how I can alter my experiences through what are apparently actions. Now you go an extra step and say, okay, well you do a bunch of, you go down the road and you go down the road and eventually you get to evolution. What you realize is, well, let's talk about how evolution works. What we're saying basically is that at some point, possibly only once in the extent of the entire universe, a chemical reaction occurred that at least temporarily was self-sustaining. And that could have been because of, right, and it may be that was just self-sustaining for a while and it created some chemical gradient or some chemical concentration so that 50 million years later, some other chemical reaction could happen. And one of these chemical reactions at one point became self-sustaining and replicated. And it became complex. And now it started to copy its own. It was some complex molecule, and it started to copy itself because of the structure of the molecule itself resulted in this molecule copying itself. Now, if something happened during the copy that resulted in an error that allows it to make better copies of itself faster, well, then that's going to win. And you already have evolution. You don't even need cell walls. You don't need anything, right? You just need the simplest things. And from there, then you can get cell walls and you can get all this other stuff. Now, we already know that there are simple chemical reactions that can get us amino acids. We know that there are simple chemical reactions that can get us these effectively cell walls that can even merge with other cells or divide. And they're not even cells. Like, they don't even have genetic information yet. They're just little lipid shells, and they already start acting like cells. So the physics provides a ton of the mechanisms to get us to organic molecules and to get us to things like cell walls. So, I don't have a hard time thinking, well, in the extent of the entire universe, this only had to happen once, so it can be ultra rare. And so, now to go to your point, which is, my approach, which is kind of my approach to doing science, I take a highly reductionist approach. I think what's generally happened in science is that people have they've gotten on boats and they've gone to Africa and they've collected their samples and they came back and they put them in the Royal Institute and they've tried to piece together how these fit together. And that was the best you could do at the time. But I think now we have the ability to look at genetics and we have the ability to do computational modeling. And between those two things, we can actually go back and question basic assumptions that these guys made. And the fact of the matter is, most of the time they're right. Most of the basic assumptions that these guys were making in the 1850s and 1930s, they're absolutely right. 99% of the stuff that they were figuring out, it works because they had so much data that was correlated that, when they got it wrong, they would fix it. But the stuff that actually persisted, it works. And we're just showing it. But the kind of science I like to do, I like to go into one of these systems and say, well, you guys think you're asserting that we've got some complex system with 100 variables, and you're asserting that X, Y, and Z are the 3 variables that matter. So what I like to do is go into the computer and build a system that only has X, Y, Z, and see if, in fact, I can get the dynamics that are described by their system with only X, Y, Z.
All right, Cliff, there's so much here. I got a couple stars that I want to come back to. But one thing I want you to touch on, because I said this and people love this quote, was when I said, I asked him to read my name, right? And I wanted him to get to the part where he acknowledged that I was a PhD. And it wasn't actually so that I could do the whole typical argument from authority, like I'm a PhD, I'm right. It was so I could say, I'm an evolutionary biologist. I don't give a fuck what other evolutionary biologists think because it's my job to tell other evolutionary biologists that they're wrong, right? And so this is our real life. Matter of fact, I always tell people on my channel that I really call it evolutionary biology. You'll notice the hard E emphasis on the evil, because I like to talk about the evolution of bad things, right? Cheaters, coercive mating, parasitic behavior, things that aren't supposed to win in the system but do, right? Because we like to not have this cushy, oh, look at the trees, isn't everything about evolution so wonderful and friendly, right? But more to the point, we like to challenge the conventional understanding of what is going on, or at least what is possible to be going on in these systems. And so people really, that gravitate, people resonate. I've had a lot of people say, "Oh, I loved when you said that." But of course, I was being hyperbolic, and that's part of the heel persona I play. But speak to that. We really are out here to challenge people, and you especially like that. And that's a big part of why I wanted to work with Cliff, was because you came from another background, you came from other professions, so you weren't as I hate to use this term, you weren't as indoctrinated into some of the dogmatic understanding of evolutionary theory. And so you kind of came in as, I'm going to test out the ideas and I'll believe something once I can test it and I see it. And before that, it's just a suggestion. Can you just talk about your approach and why that's so radical and how it's worked for you?
I mean, exactly that, right? I worked in computer animation for 20 years and then switched, switched to doing this. It's just, I got into that when it was a new field and it was exciting. And now it became more route, and I wanted to do something, interesting and new. And so here I am. And I forgot where I was going, but
you're undermining everybody's stuff. You're like, I'll believe it when I see it, and I'm testing the essential assumptions. I won't even grant you the basics until I can test it.
I accept evolutionary theory as it stands with regards to biology, because I have seen many cases where it holds true, and I have yet to see a case where it fails. So that's the first thing. And somebody saying, well, I've never seen a cat make a dog, that would be a case of evolution failing, right? That would literally be evolution failing if we saw that. what we generally tend to see is that simple organisms evolve and generally become more complex, especially over long periods of time. And once they complexify in a certain way, they don't really go backwards. So once you get multicellularity, you don't generally go back to single celled. Once you get divided to have different organs within your body, you don't generally go back.
Guys, he didn't say can't. He didn't say can't, right? I work in the Travisano lab where they literally evolve and go back and forth between multicellular and unicellular all the time. But that's a unique experimental system that they've derived just to do that, because they found a species that can do that. That's the exception, not the rule, right? Just because I heard somebody being triggered nitpicking at the literature. You know how people like to nitpick at the literature. Y'all need to stop doing that. Also, don't fact check people. That's rude. Go ahead, Cliff.
So. There was a question earlier on about, what did you do to get your PhD?
All right, hang on. Let me address that. I want you
to address it, and then I'm going to show one picture, because I haven't gotten my PhD yet, but I'm going to show a picture. I'm not going to spend a lot of time explaining it, but I'm just going to show something that I'm
you can have all the time you want. All right, so here's the deal with that. I was so happy they asked this question, right? Because I just did my PhD literally less than a year ago. It'll be a year in August. We'll kind of celebrate that right around the time of my birthday. So I discovered using digital organisms. I did this experiment where I manipulated the depth of phylogenetic history in digital organisms, and then I was able to put them in some new environments and test how. We talked about those three essential ingredients of evolution: variation, inheritance, and selection. We also refer to them as adaptation, chance, and history. And we have this unique system where we can actually measure how much each of those three essential ingredients contributes to the evolution of particular phenotypic traits, right? And so in our digital organisms, I basically studied and found evidence that the footprint of history, in other words, how much history matters or how much evolutionary constraint is imposed on a lineage by its evolutionary history, totally depends not only on the relationship between the organism and its current environment, but on the relationship between the organism's current environment and the environment that its ancestors evolved in. So it was super cool research. I will talk more and more about it on the channel coming up. It was a one-of-a-kind of experiment, and beyond that, it's the type of thing that you can only really do in digital organisms. You could never do this type of experiment in biological organisms, which is why I have Rich Lenski and Charles Afria, who's the lead developer of Avita, on that paper. We're super excited about that, and we're trying to get that research published in A-Life. I did a follow-up experiment showing in that system that the type of pleiotropy that you see, which basically just refers to how particular genes affect multiple traits. So we saw that the form of pleiotropy that you get and how a gene affects the traits in sort of the current environment versus the ancestral environment, whether those type of interactions are synergistic or antagonistic, again, depends on the relationship between the environments. We documented that. We also did educational exercise that we developed for our educational software based on this research. And I wrote a whole philosophy of science chapter about the sort of history of the concept of replaying life's tape, how that's manifested in experimental evolution and digital evolution. And so I did a whole philosophy, history of science chapter. Really excited about all that. And not stuff that wasn't even part of my dissertation. I also was part of the Lenski long-term evolution experiments. I was part of a big thing we called the all hands experiment, where we showed that all 12 populations of the Lenski lines continue to improve at now 60 or 70,000 generations into the experiment, whatever that was, and it looks like they'll do so indefinitely. That I think that was a PNAS paper or something, right? That Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences, right? So that was a big publication. That was a big paper, right? I was fortunate enough to be a part of that. So yeah, folks, thanks for the question. It turns out they do not hand out those PhDs, especially not dual PhDs, as I was fortunate enough to get. And so that's what I did. And excited to have a chance to talk to you about that. And here's some of the ironies of this Slides in Life. Like Cliff said, he has not gotten his PhD yet. And I'm now a postdoctoral researcher, and Cliff is still a PhD student. But as you get to...
Well, I got enough papers to...
No, hang on. This is kind of my point. Hang on. Let me do this.
Yeah,
right? But what you'll learn over the course of our interactions is Cliff is actually training me. This is not a game. You'll see that. It's no secret, right? Cliff is actually training me, and that'll continue. If I become a faculty member and can hire Cliff as a postdoc, he'll still be training me. And so even though Cliff is not yet has his own PhD, he's actually accomplished more as a published researcher than I have. So Cliff, talk about what you've done, what you've created, discovered, invented, not even yet finishing your PhD. God damn it. Go ahead.
So the first thing is I met with my committee finally 3 months ago.
Yeah, it's a big deal, those committee meetings.
And I had a conversation. I said, well, all right, guys, there are two ways I could go with this PhD. And one of them it would have the highfalutin title, Understanding the Evolution of Cognition and with Structure and Information Theory-Based Analysis. I'm not going to go into any detail of what it is. And all the papers that I need for that, I have 5 papers on this topic already published. But I said, I don't want to do this because there's a topic I'd rather do my PhD on because it's a topic I want to actually research, and I don't want to get I don't want to get pulled away from it before I finish it. So I basically added 2 years to my PhD so that I could focus on this other topic. And I'm gonna share my screen. And I'm going to show you just a little tiny piece of just one little result. Are you seeing it? Let's see if that comes up.
Yeah, you're a guest, so it's probably back here. I just need to add it. I'll go ahead and add it. Hang on. Boop. Oh, right, so guys, hang on a sec. Guys, before I let Cliff show you this, guys. Come on, y'all. This is real stuff right here. This man is just on the fly, impromptu, showing you the goods, folks. Unpublished data. Come on. Go ahead, Cliff. Take the floor, man.
All right. So here it is. What we see here is this figure J here. It doesn't matter. Hey, J. This figure J here shows it shows evolution over time in a digital system, where every time it goes up, it's a genetic improvement, and then it's just blown up over here in I. All I want to say,
hang on, Cliff. Cliff, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
You're coming in and out. Can you stop your camera for a second and then just try explaining it from start over again, but then see if that gets your signal a little better. All right, go ahead. Explain the figure again, please.
Better?
Yes, I think it is.
All right, so I got I and J. I is just a zoom in on this gray portion of J. And all I want to point out here is this is a very simple digital evolution system. And what I'm showing here is punctuated equilibrium. So anyone who says, oh, the Cambrian explosion, you can't get a sudden, rapid evolution and then it's followed by slow evolution without God's hand on the till. Yes, you can. It's right here. I do it all the time. It's my bread and butter. It will be a core element of my thesis. I'm not going to talk about the details. You just got to wait about a year until we get the first paper published, and then we're going to discuss in detail how this occurs. But anyone who says punctuated equilibrium can't happen,
Cliff, give them the elevator punctuated equilibrium just for the people who don't know the concept, just so they can get a sneak peek of what you're talking about.
The idea that, so Darwin said we expect evolution to occur as a gradual series of small changes. What he did not say specifically was that the timing between those events would also be regular. And some people came along and they interpreted this as being, oh, we should expect that over evolutionary time, we should see a constant rate of improvement.
So the
Now,
idea,
that's
hang on a
already
sec, Cliff, I'm
because
just cutting
if
in
you got-
I'm just cutting in to make sure that we're
Yeah,
following
go
along. So basically, people take Darwin's idea, which is the gradual evolution of populations, the gradual emergence of new traits, and therefore the fit between populations and their environment. It happens as this sort of slow improvement because these changes are happening super gradually over time, right? And so, but people somehow then interpreted that to be, well, he's also making a statement about sort of the rate or pace at which they evolve, and saying that they've got to be sort of accumulating these steps at a constant rate.
Yes.
And then punctuated equilibrium comes along and says, actually, there can be quite a bit of time between the steps. And then not only that, sometimes you get a jump instead of a graduated
the
thing.
thing is, by evolution, you shouldn't see big jumps in terms of genetic change because it's going to be small mutations. It's just that a lot of these mutations can accumulate very quickly. So one case is if you have an ice age, that's a change in environment, and then you're going to see rapid evolution to adapt to the new environment, right? If you've got like a migration, if a species migrates to another location and the environment in that new location is different, you're going to see a period of rapid evolution while they adapt because there's many beneficial, there's a higher proportion of beneficial mutations than there would be if you were well adapted to your environment. But what I'm showing here, particularly in this figure over here in I, this is not a changing environment. This is a stable environment, nothing's changing. And again, without going into any details, this is simply a dynamic that arises under certain conditions. It's a certain balance. There's a kind of if anyone's heard of shifting balance theory, this is related to shifting balance theory, but there's a balance between the effects of selection strength. And it can be this balancing act is purely a dynamics of the population. It doesn't need any external force. And so all I'm saying from this figure is anyone who says that the Cambrian explosion needed some external input, it didn't. It had it. There was an increase in oxygen levels. There were significant changes in environment. There was competition between species. But even without it, we can still see punctuated equilibrium. So that's what I'm bringing to the table. If somebody wants to know what am I doing for my PhD, that's what I'm bringing to the table. Let's see if I can put my camera back up. So,
all right, I snuck off. I just snuck off for a quick second. I put you on the speakers. No, I put you on the speaker so I could hear you. But I was seeing what the hell is going on outside my house. I was like, man, my neighbor's taking forever to mow his lawn. They're literally chopping trees. They're literally like the worst audio situation. They're actually outside my house shoving logs into the wood chipper. Like, oh, great. Everybody is trying to stop my shine, Cliff. But
I get it.
That was.
I mean, last week it's not so bad. Last week power was out. That was worse.
Yeah, seriously. But dude, thank you. And guys, you see what I'm talking about, right? This is the power of digital evolution. Is like you really get to test the theories, right, themselves, and you get to do it quickly. And you do it by stripping it down to this system. And then when you have it, you have the most powerful direct evidence you can have because you've stripped away all the nonsense. And so we'll be getting into the details of this stuff. But guys, this stuff is really powerful. But a couple of things that Cliff spoke on, man, like just to reinforce this stuff, we don't give a fuck what other evolutionary biologists tell you. Like we really don't. Like, we really don't, right? Because this is the type of healthy debates we're engaged in. We know there are people who don't think these things happen. We know there are people who think our ideas are bad. We tell other people their ideas are bad. And I got news for you. That is the fun, right? Like, I'll give you an example of coercive mating, right? That's something I'm really into. It's just a super fun thing to think about, right? The evolution of bad boys, so to speak. But the thing that's cool about it is, like, this started as we were doing, like, we're very interested in sexual selection. We're trying to build and get some sexual selection research done. Cliff's already done a number of papers, right? And so you didn't buy into people's ideas about sexual conflict. Like, you were basically, nah, bullshit.
Yeah, although that last talk we went to, I gotta say, I think there's some validity to that talk we went to a few weeks back. That was the first time that somebody said something. I said, all right, you know what? I think I may sort of buy into this theory.
So that's kind of what I'm getting at, is like, that was a genuine part of our motivation. Like, we were actually trying to do this, so we're trying to get into this stuff, and rather than being like, oh, we've just got to go along with what everybody says, we're like, no, we're gonna be challenging some people's ideas. And to your point, you were like, yo, Jay, the seminar's happening. You know, I'm still not buying the sexual conflict stuff, but we gonna go hear this lady out. I want you to come and see what's up. And I'm like, I'm here for it. Like, I'm here for it. Like, Cliff is trying to get into some shit today. Let's go, right? So I'm there. Yeah. She gave this amazing talk, and we loved it. We were very impressed. And you had a heart-to-heart. You told her, hey, I really wasn't buying a lot of this stuff, but I got some ideas I want you to hear out, and she heard them out. And to your point, you were like, yo, I'm buying this now. And that was when I started to be like, all right, let's see if we could do some coercive mating stuff in MABE. And to your credit, you've been like, yo, let's do it, right?
I think that the thing for me is, that I thought was interesting in that exchange was, you know, I brought up, I heard what this person had to say, and they brought evidence to the table, which is new evidence, right? Like, some of that's not even published yet. And what I thought was really interesting was, so what we're talking about is this idea of sexual conflict, and what it means is the idea is that what's good for the female of the species is not necessarily good for the male, and vice versa. And so the males and females are in conflict, but I've been generally taking a different position, which is that it tends to be the case that the males who are able to fertilize females more successfully, even if that's by forcing mating, are the ones who are going to reproduce more often. And so the females who can limit their mating to only those males are going to have male offspring who are very good at fertilizing females. And that it's sort of a collusion between the males and females of the species. And I had not seen evidence that said, no, it's not collusion, it's actually conflict. But in this work was showing that females of certain species can actually deny certain males preferentially. They can choose on a particular mating event whether or not they're going to allow that male to try to copulate, and the male's trying to bypass it. And in that case, and then there will be other males that, you know, that the female's like, oh yeah, I want to get fertilized by, and let it happen. And so that was like, all right.
And we're talking about like what, ducks, right? She was talking about ducks, I think, with this.
Yeah, ducks and dolphins.
Ducks and dolphins.
Certain fish are in here too.
Yeah.
But, you know, and this was looking at, and I mean, her work is crazy because she's looking at the shape of the sex organs and how they work together and how the sex organs change during the sex act and all this kind of crazy stuff. But what was cool was I brought up at the end, I said, you know, I'm really impressed. But I still think, particularly in simple mating systems, that collusion is actually more important than sexual conflict. I think sexual conflict would come along later. And, you know, this person I'm talking to is an expert in the field. They spend all their time working on this. Oh, absolutely. You have to take both into consideration. So I said, okay, maybe I'm not totally crazy. But I mean, this is the sort of collaboration that happens, right? Sometimes we disagree, and then sometimes we get convinced. Here's a case where I fully admit, like, new evidence came to light and I have to change my opinion.
Right. That's what I was getting at, is that we genuinely don't have to grant each other some sort of, oh, well, such and such says this and they're an evolutionary biologist. No. We are out here looking to scrap, looking to fight, and sometimes somebody delivers on the goods and they go, here's what I've done. Here's my experiments, and I've observed it in multiple systems, and we're looking into the genetic signature behind all this and blah, blah, blah. And we go, all right. You know, we asked for the goods you showed us. Matter of fact, hey, what you think of what we're doing? Maybe you can help us out, right? That's real, right? That's how it goes in real life. That's how it flows. And the thing I love about this, right, is this is the church, right? This is the community that's coming together to find the truth, right? And we're breaking bread together, holding each other accountable, calling each other on our sin. Hey, that research is a little weak. No, your research is a little weak, right? You know, and then like it's so much better because it is man-made and it's malleable, and we don't have to say, oh, so and so said this, so now it's written in stone, and nobody's allowed to disagree with them because there's an authority on the subject. The best part about working with Rich Lenski for 10 years, who's someone who like people have so much admiration for in our field, right, is that I had to get used to telling Rich Lenski he was wrong. I had to figure out how to tell Rich Lenski respectfully I disagree. I had to figure out how to tell Rich Lenski, Rich, I know you took a really great look at this data, but I look at this data every day, right? Like, and also recognize, like you said, like you were talking about, when he was going to come back, yeah, Jay, and guess what? You're still wrong. And I'd be like, God damn, he's right. Go. Oh, God damn it, Rich. How does he do that? Right? Like, and so touching on that, I want to say a little bit of something that happened behind the scenes that people didn't get to see on that episode, which is that the thing that really got me passionate and animated talking to them was actually that. I'm used to people saying crazy stuff about me all the time. I'm a radical atheist on the internet. I'm the Word Wrestling Entertainment United States champion. I wear the sexiest tights. I have the best entrance on all of YouTube. Haters are going to hate, you know? So that's going to happen. But what set me off was he started talking about Rich, right? And sometimes people just think this academic name dropping and stuff is just like, oh, you know, don't talk about the people I represent because, you know, you're upsetting me. It's like, no, you're talking about literally someone who's going to be referred to as my academic father my entire career. You're talking about somebody who's accomplished everything in the history of science and saw J. Bundy, who has done absolutely nothing in evolutionary biology, but had a passion and interest and was like, you know what? I think I could turn that kid into a legit bona fide professor, right? And so, guys, you're talking about the person who made sure for 10 years I did not miss a meal. Right? Like, so, like, you're talking about, it's like, say what you want about me, but when you talk about my advisor, I will cut you. Like, so I wanted to just bounce this off one of the few people in the world who could talk about it a little bit. I don't want to glow about him too much. And obviously, I've had my moments with him, and we've challenged each other. It's just part of the process. But Cliff, you know Rich. He is a very famous scientist, or about as famous as you can get as a biologist.
I'm trying to work with him right now. We sent him the first draft of the paper, and he just said, I don't have time to look at this. You got to make this better. Like, literally, we sent him a draft of the paper. He said, I don't have time. You got a spelling error here in the first paragraph. Give me a better draft. I was like, son of a bitch. Damn it.
Yeah, so just go ahead. Talk about Rich for a little bit, man. I don't want to go on. I want you to talk about him from your perspective.
I mean, from the first time I realized. So I mean, I came to MSU and I didn't come up through academic ranks, right? I came out of industry. I went to college with Charles Ofria. I knew about his research. I followed up on it, but I didn't. You know, I wasn't well read. I just started coming to MSU, and
Guys, Charles Afree is the guy who Charles Afree is the guy who made the Avita system that I use for my research, and it's probably the most well-known digital evolution system. Cliff and I are trying to, get Mabe in that race. We think Mabe is, maybe outpacing Avita, but Avita's still out there in the lead.
Mabe does what it does.
But yeah, go ahead. You knew Charles, and then go ahead. I didn't want to cut you off. I don't want to let people know who Charles is. Go ahead.
So anyway, so I met Rich through Charles because Rich was here at MSU, and but I had no idea. Like he was just like one of the guys. Like I had no idea how big he was. And then I ended up at a conference, and I'm sitting next to some guys from Brazil, and I didn't realize I was name dropping. They were like, "Oh, what kind of stuff do you work on? Who do you work with?" And
thanks, loyalty in the last days. We'll see you later. He's just dipping out. Hey, man, we appreciate you. We like people of all persuasions coming through. Thanks for showing us love and respect, man. And we'll chat more. I'm enjoying my conversation with Cliff, but I appreciate your activity in the live chat here so much. We'll see you later. Go ahead, Cliff.
So yeah, anyway, I name dropped. I didn't realize I was name dropping, but I just was like, "Oh, here are people I work with." And they were like, "Rich Lenski." Like, yeah, he's huge. And I was like, "He is? Oh, all right, he's huge." So like that was the first time I was like, "Whoa, I'm in a really good place."
Right. It dawns on you.
Like I hadn't realized how big Avita was. I hadn't realized how big Rich. I didn't realize how big the long-term experiment was. But no, I mean, it's just some of these people, Rich in particular, he's very fast on the uptake. He knows his stuff. And if if you're wrong, he's just going to tell you why you're wrong. And if you can make a good point, he's not going to fight you on a good point, but you gotta come in with your A game when you want to talk to Rich. Because he's not going to take he doesn't have time for any BS. He's got a big lab. He's working on a lot of projects, and you have to bring good stuff to him. You can't waste his time.
And also, like, there's a certain amount of excellence, right? There's a standard when you do, like you said, Rich told you, I don't have time to even read this, and this isn't ready for me to read it because I started reading it, and there was a typo in the first paragraph. Send me back something that's Rich read worthy, right?
Yeah.
And that can be harsh, right? But
harsh.
But you and I are from you and I are rare. Go ahead.
I've been working on that paper now for another 3 months, and it's a much better paper. Because we went back, we went back and we did like a pass through, and then like when we were reading it, we were like, you know what, this has got to be better.
Thanks, Satan's Little Helper. Sorry, Satan's Little Helper is one of my OGs, my regulars. Also, you guys notice he dropped that lurk command, and now I'm like, hey, Satan's Little Helper is now lurking. Peace be unto you. That's my OG showing you guys how to use the bot, right? The other thing that does is it gets you more pocket change. You guys get 10 pocket change for every 10 minutes you're watching the stream, but you get 100 pocket change for every 10 minutes when you're active in the chat. So one of the easy ways to get that extra 10x bonus is to just go ahead and drop that lurk command. It lets us know you might not be that active in the chat, but you're still watching us. Satan's Little Helper, we appreciate you. Go fuck yourself. So Cliff, I was gonna say, you and I are that rare breed of people where like we are humans. When we take criticism, it stings a little bit, right? But then we take a moment to ourselves and we go, think about who just gave you that criticism, right? They didn't say, go fuck yourself, I'm not working with you, this project is over. They just said, hey, fix this and we'll get this going, right? And you and I are that rare breed who like really want to get better, right? Like like I prove it in the fact that people around me know, like Jay's just like not trying to take any shortcuts, right? Jay's just like, give me time and let me do it. And then Cliff is the dude who's like, Everybody's like, hey, Cliff, you've got enough papers and you've got enough stuff and you could be doing all the grants and getting all the fancy positions. Cliff is like, nah, I just got to do this. I gotta find the next most interesting thing. I gotta build the system again better next time, right? And people see that, right? We're just that rare breed of fucked up people. So,
I mean, I'm not here for a career. I did a career. I made some money. I'm here to do science. Like I want to do science. I want to pursue those angles that are interesting to me.
Right.
Like, you know, a lot of people are driven because they want to do something that's going to have some medical or industrial application. I don't care. I just want to understand how the stuff works.
Yeah.
That's my driver.
And I'm trying.
And I think also that's one of the reasons why it's so infuriating for people who are questioning they're questioning the motives of scientists, which means they're questioning my motives. Right. They're like, oh, you're so part of some conspiracy. You're being fooled, whatever.
Right.
Hey, no, I'm not. I'm not getting paid a lot of money for this. I could go back to do an industry, or I could go, I could become a programmer. I can make 4 times what I make.
Absolutely.
If I did that, though, I wouldn't have any time to do science. Science is more important to me.
Right.
And then the other thing is for someone to come to me and say you're deluded. It's like, no, dude, I'm like going down to the base level, and I'm doing experimentation from the base level so that I am not deluded. I am worried every day that I'm deluded. I'm like if you talk to me, you're like, man, he keeps going back and talking about philosophy of science and how easy it is for us to be deluded. Like I bore people with how much I talk about how worried I am that I'm full of shit.
Right. Facts. The true story, right? And to kind of tie this back to Rich a little bit, because I did want to use this as an opportunity to talk about him a bit. A lot of people have this sort of famous science effect, famous scientist effect. Wow, that's a big name. And then I see something like, to me, it's crazy. Like, I didn't even expect them to know who Lenski is, right? Nevertheless, be like, oh, I've read Lenski's papers and he's full of shit, right? And so it's like, I have the same thing with like Cory Booker, right? Cory Booker's a national political figure. He's a senator from New Jersey. He's always in the top, 10 of the Democratic presidential candidates, right? But I've known him since I was 11 years old. He's like family to me. So when people talk about Cory Booker, it's like, I'll cut you over the motherfucker because I wouldn't be here without him. Him and I both know that, right? Like, I've done like 19 internships with Cory Booker. Like, you know what I mean? Like, OG, like that's my dude, right? So it's the same way with Rich for me. So when you're talking about these people, you're not just talking about a name to us, right? Cliff, when we talk about Rich Lenski, you're talking about somebody who's invested in our success, who helps us with our research, who's scrutinizing our papers, who's trying to give us career advice, right? Like, y'all see the shit I'm doing, like all the shit I'm doing, Word Wrestling Entertainment, constantly streaming all the time. I started this shit when I was under Rich. And
wait a minute, Jay. You're telling me that you know who Rich Lenski is, that you've experienced him, and you're telling me that he's not full of shit and he's not just shilling to get money from the government? Somehow he's a legit scientist. Is that what you're telling me, Jay? And why should I believe you? Just because you've spent 10 years working with him?
And here's the thing that kills me worse than that. And I've been telling people this, and I think here's where I want to go with this. And I know if you'll agree with me or not. Rich Lenski's influence in science is so much bigger than the LTEE. I nominated him once for subscriber 191. Let's get to 200. Thank you, Fernando. I appreciate you. The thing I said when I wrote a letter, I had to write a letter of why I think they should give him the award, right? I said he would be one of the most important biologists in the history of biology if he had never done the long-term evolution experiment. And what I was referring to is if you just looked at his role as a mentor, if you just looked at who else's career has he helped in this field, how many other faculty has he helped put on, what is he like to his grad students, right? Like, what has he done, right, in the field, setting aside his own accomplishments, right? Who's competing with Rich in that category? Like, fucking nobody, right? The diversity of his lab, the fact that you could take the labs, you could take like 5-6 departments of labs, and they will not have the diversity of the one single LNCA lab, all concentrated in one place. Like, he just gets down like that, y'all. And so what I always say is, like, as a scientist, he's so much bigger than the LTEE, and it's sad that people don't know that. And then for us that know him, I always say Rich LNCA, the person, is grossly outsizing Rich LNCA, the scientist, and that's the super sad part. Like, if you knew Rich LNCA, oh my goodness, would you not talk about that man like that, right? Like, oh my goodness. Not even if you disagree with the science, he's just a really good dude, and you would feel terrible. Like, you definitely put a little respect on his name, even if you just knew what kind of nice human being he is, right? Generally speaking. When he's not telling you that he can't read your paper because there's a typo in the first paragraph.
Well, I mean, the matter is what he was really saying was, I want to see a version of this paper that's in good shape, because I'm going to make judgments about this paper when I start reading it. And I want you to lay out your best arguments. And if I see typos on the first page, that's telling me you probably haven't spent enough time to really make good, strong arguments, right? Because what he wants to do is come in. He wants to hear the best arguments that I can make, so we don't have to have a discussion where I have to clarify things.
Right.
And then what he's going to do is he's going to then come to me and he's going to question the assertions that I'm making, and then he's going to plus it. And he say, all right, I understand. I think you're full of shit here. I think this is a good point. And he's going to plus it. He's going to help me figure out how to say it better. And then he's going to go through and write a pass where he's going to fix up all the language, and he's going to put it in words that are going to be understandable. And they're going to be like the right words, right? I mean, part of this is you got to use the right words if you want to sound like you know what you're talking about. Yeah.
So again, he's just trying to make it better, right? And then what we know is, even when they come back with the better draft, now it's after that, it's still going to come back covered in red ink, right? Where Rich has gone through and actually taken the time to make a lot of changes and make things the way he wants them to go and leave the comments. And so it's just like this person's work and the intensity that they do this in is just second to none. And also, what I was going to touch on is just the investment, right? So what I was really trying to justify, guys, is telling you that what happened was, when I was having this conversation with LPP, John Maddox, it triggered me when he talked about Rich, right? And even what I was getting at is the situation I'm in now, where I'm able to do all this crazy stuff, it's because I'm supported by Mike Travisano and Rob Pennock. That's my research mentor and my teaching mentor. And so as I was finishing in Rich's lab, right, and I'm worried, Cliff, right, I'm taking you back a year, right? I was super worried, like, oh my God, I'm trying to finish my dissertation. How am I going to get this done on time and all this stuff, right? All those concerns. In that most frantic period of my career to that point, Rich was hitting me up like, hey, Jay, don't forget, you need to find a postdoc, right? And dude, that was huge for me, Cliff. It was huge for me because I was going through COVID. I was stressed. I was so worried. And it said to me a couple things. It was a very brief little email, just said that, hey, don't forget you got to find a postdoc. It said to me, oh, wait, Jay, Rich is actually expecting you to finish this right now. And this is about to happen, right? Like, he's expecting this is about to work out. You're about to graduate, and he's expecting you to finish. Like, it was like it was a very supportive little nudge, right? And then it was also my way of going, and he's expecting you to find a fucking job. Now get on it, right? And I just went for it. And I wrote this big list of all the people I was interested in working with. I sent them all emails. I started Zooming with people, setting up the fucking meetings and doing the whole bit. And I was telling Rich about it, and I broke down my feedback. And he said repeatedly to me, like, the best person for you, I think, is Mike Travisano. That's the best fit, right? And I kept going, all right, Rich, cool, got you, but there's this thing and that thing and blah, blah, blah. And he just was very consistent. He finally sent me another really nice, well-written email. He said, yeah, of all the people you've been talking about and meeting with, I really think the best person for your research and your personality is Mike Travisano, right? And guys, my dissertation research is based on Mike Travisano's dissertation research that he did in Rich Lenski's lab like 30 years ago, right? So this was, Rich knew I wanted to stay in the family. I wanted to keep doing experimental evolution. He knew I was a huge fan of Mike's work, but this was such an honor for Rich Lenski to tell me, hey, no, I think you really should pursue working with Mike Travisano, Jay. Like, you've done this, like, let's go, right? And now that I'm in Mike's lab, Mike is like the most amazing advisor, guys. Mike came to me after I started making YouTube videos and doing all this stuff, and I was like, Mike, I need a better work computer. And he was like, what do you really think you need? I was like, top of the line, fully spec'd M1 Ultra. And he was like, why? I was like, because that's how I work, Mike. Jay needs more computer. And he was like, yeah, I have a postdoc who is intensely computational. I think we need to get him one of these computers. I came back to him. I was like, hey, Mike, guess what I need? He was like, what? I was like, another computer. He was like, why? I was like, because my M1 can't be in beast mode if it's also streaming and recording. I need a separate computer for streaming and recording. He's like, I have a grad student who needs to buy, right? Like, he sat me down. Guys, I do all this crazy stuff. He sat me down. He said, Jay, let me tell you something. I don't care about the rules. Do I strike you as the type of person who cares about the rules? Right? So, guys, what am I telling you? This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. You can't get away with my whole presentation is not fucking safe for work. I'm smoking weed on the internet right now, right? Right? And I can get away with it because my boss loves me, right? And so what I'm trying to impress upon you is even at the end of that 10-year relationship I had with Rich Lenski, even when he could have just been like, hey, Jay, we're done now. Bye, see ya, have fun in your career. He was like, no. Let me do possibly the biggest thing I've done for you yet. Let me make sure when you leave here, you take the right next step and you end up with the right person for you. So again, when you talk about my advisors, I will cut you. Like, don't do it. It's the not safe topic. I will actually fight you over my mentors. Like,
I hear all this, but for me, like, I don't care because whatever, like, words are words. Like, oh,
I know. I don't
care. The problem is when somebody comes in and starts attacking the integrity of these people. So basically, they're claiming that they're lawyers. Like, you can't come in and say, oh, there's a big cabal of researchers and they're all in on it, right? It's like when the flat earthers come in and they're like, oh, everybody at NASA and the European Union Space Agency and the North Korean
right.
They're all in some big cabal. And, I love that somebody posted, I think it was on Twitter, somebody posted something and they were like, so when does it happen? Does it happen like second year of grad school? Like a guy comes up to you with a check for $10 million, like you better take this check and you're part of the cabal or you're going to get offed. And like, if so, like, where are the guys who don't take the checks and they get killed? Like, where are those? Like what's going? Like, where's the big cover up here? Like, it just doesn't make any sense. Like, when does it happen? When do I get? And the guy was like, at the end, he's like, and so like, assuming this is all true, when do I get mine? Because like,
that's what I was wondering. Right? Because look, Cliff.
Where is it?
Cliff, I'm trying to raise $100 for charity for my birthday. I'm streaming nonstop for a month to raise $100. Where's my cabal money? I should be making it rain on charities right now. All right, so look, there's a couple things I want to touch on, and then I'll leave it open to you or whatever. The reason I just chilled here for a while, Cliff, is I'm on what's called workcation for the next 3 weeks. Which is, all right, so there's a vacation, right, which is when you take time away from work to max and relax, right? There's a staycation where you do a vacation at home, right? A workcation is when you actually take a break from meetings so you can actually get work done.
Oh, that's what?
Yeah, so for the next couple of weeks, I'm only taking my meetings with you, like Mike every other week, and then Rob maybe like once a week or so. And then otherwise, I'm just gonna actually be working on videos because I got to get a Vita Ed videos done. I'm gonna be working on programming, doing MABE stuff. Like that's why I said I'm gonna start doing all this like work streaming stuff. This is why this is like dedicated time to like get that going that way when I'm in the flow of doing all this stuff. So this is a great time for me. So thanks for taking the time to do this. This has been super fun. All right, so Cliff, teach me about the fitness fidelity rate, because clearly I don't know shit about evolutionary biology because I don't understand the requirement for the fitness fidelity rate. This is a reference to what John Maddox was arguing during the LPP video. He told me evolution requires fitness fidelity for my simulations of evolution to work. I told him he was full of shit and that I'd never heard that term. Sorry, I'm caffeinated.
What he was clearly referring to was the audio quality generated from an organism. I mean, I assume, because that's where I generally hear fidelity.
The what quality?
The audio quality.
Like sample rate or something?
I don't know. It's just like the sound. Like when you put a record on, you talk about the fidelity of the record. Right?
Yeah, right, yeah.
Fidelity in a technical
term. Sure.
I never heard it related to fitness, so I got to assume it's that. So I assume what he's talking about is something to do with the ability of the organisms to make certain sounds and how clearly they can replicate this. Maybe he's talking about signaling. I'm just guessing here because fidelity just is not a word that comes up.
Okay. Cliff, I was actually concerned. What would you have said in that situation?
I'd like to see the citation where they're using that, because then I could understand how they're using it. I assume what he means is, the argument that they were making was that if there isn't some selection in play, then you're not going to get evolution. But what determines what is being selected? And again, this sort of goes back to the philosophy of science that I was talking about before, where it's like, look, when we build a digital system, what we are effectively doing is establishing the physics of a universe, a very simple universe, but we're just saying we're going to establish the physics. Here's how things operate. When you're given the world, the actual universe, you've got, quarks and electrons and neutrons and whatever, and then they combine in certain ways to make elements, and they combine in certain ways to make chemicals, and chemicals act in certain ways, and they have certain properties. And if you put two hydrogens together with an oxygen, this emergent property of wetness shows up, but not if you only do two hydrogen and one oxygen. You got to get a whole bunch of these hydrogen oxygens together in order to get wetness, right? But those are the rules. So those are the rules of the universe. And it ends up in our universe that there's probably a finite number of rules, but it's like an uncountable finite number of rules.
Sure.
We build our systems with a finite number of rules, highly controllable, so that we know we can modify individual rules and know what's going on.
So go ahead.
Yes, we construct a fitness function. We are the ones going in and deciding this is what's going to generate fitness in some cases. In other cases, I have built systems where I have simply put rules in place. I have not explicitly built in a fitness function, but implicitly I did, right? Because I made rules, and because those rules exist, there are certain ways that organisms within the system can leverage the rules, and so you get implicit fitness. But his claim was that since in the digital systems, we are doing something to, build the universe, that the results require an intelligence. Now, if somebody wants to argue that the origin of the universe requires an intelligence, but then God took his hands off the wheel, right? He sparks the Big Bang and then he walks away. That's a fine hypothesis. And for all of my research, it makes never mind. Like, it does not change anything that I do. How the matter of the universe got here and what established the rules that physics plays by, physics and chemistry and by, It doesn't matter. I study how these systems work. Now, the fact of the matter is we don't know how they got here. And so, whatever. But the fact of the matter is when we do our digital evolution, we create a system and then we walk away and we see what they do. And that's the analogy to the universe comes into existence in the form it's in, and then stuff happens and we measure what happens. That's what we do as scientists.
That's an incredible description. I want to highlight a few things for you guys. Number one, when I heard that question, I was immediately frustrated because I immediately thought, go fuck yourself, John Maddox. I have no idea what you're talking about. And I immediately thought Cliff would have maybe so much of a better response to this, and I got nothing. And so I went with that, right? I was like, nope, I've never heard that. I don't know what you're talking about. I'm trying to tell you over and over again, no. I just, that's a non-starter for me. I'm not even going to go there. But guys, what you just heard from Cliff is amazing, right? And I'm new to all this, and I'm learning how to do this. And I honestly feel like where I'm trying to go with digital evolution is to get more like Cliff, right? I am a person who uses these systems for research. I'm like a laboratory scientist who comes in. People like Cliff have built these systems. I plug in a couple of variables to tweak it to test my particular theory, and then I let it run and see what happens. And that was great. It was certainly sufficient to get me my dissertation working, my PhD working under Rich Lenski, and get myself established in experimental evolution. It's fine. It's sufficient to get the job done for what I do. But I'm trying to become a professor and expert in this, and also be able to teach it to other people, at least sufficiently for my grad students, my postdocs, classes and whatnot. And so I'm trying to learn how to build these systems myself, right? And so working with Cliff, I'll probably go back and review that and listen and pick apart things that he said just for my own benefit. But this is also why I want to bring you guys my colleagues. This is why I was so excited to start doing this. It's why I'm doing more stuff with Cliff, more stuff with Rodrigo. Guys, I work with the real people who really do this stuff, and they're motherfucking experts, and they're amazing at this shit, and they're not afraid of this bullshit that's out here. They are not scared of the blase and the flavonoids, right? And so, I'm just so excited to do more stuff with Cliff, and dude, that was awesome. And to be honest, Cliff, you're an amazing counter-apologist, and this is something that I know just from our conversations, right? But, we haven't done a lot of stuff out there. So I hope maybe we'll do more stuff. We'll start calling in places, or we'll start having people call in and maybe do some late night stuff.
When I'm actually talking to people, like in person, I just have to remember to stay very emotionally detached. It's very easy to be emotionally detached from this elevated seat. But when you're especially when people start cutting in, when you're trying to give a lengthy explanation. And actually, on some of the stuff today, some of the I gave responses to certain things, and one of the people who was making comments early on made comments, and it's apparent that they're not listening.
Right.
It's you just got a question that I've already addressed. Why we got to do this? Can't we? Listen to what the words that are coming out of my mouth. You can say I don't accept that, but then we're not going to talk about that topic anymore. But if you're going to circle around and make me keep repeating myself, and then you're just the worst is when you get into that, and then they're like, oh, well, you're just being repetitive. You're like, well, I'm just going to keep saying the same thing, because it hasn't changed.
Right.
You can keep making up new stuff because it's coming out of your ass.
Right.
But I can't, because the facts are the facts.
Yeah. And my thing is, honestly, Cliff, that's all part of it, right? I realize it's all part of the being out here, right? And you're just used to dealing with it. And we have people who come through all the time, and they're known trolls, half friendly trolls, if you will, but they're regulars. And so when we want to engage in them, we do, and when we don't, we don't. And people like Satan's that'll help. By the way, Satan's that'll help. Talk to me and let me know later if you're a mod or not. We'll make sure you're a mod. But I tell my mods, like, hey guys, if you want to mess around and have some fun with the trolls, go ahead. But if you don't and you want to time them out or block them, like, go for it. Like, I'm never gonna give you grief for it. I can leave that up to your discretion, right? Like, but also it helps the algorithm, right? I'm gonna be honest with you, it all helps, right? What I love, I was gonna thank the chat too, and say, like, guys, I'm one of the most killer small streamers going on the internet. When YouTube looks at my internet, they'll be like, or my activity, they'll be like, this guy might have like 6 viewers on a stream, but they'll watch him for like 7 hours, and he'll have like. And
I'm gonna cut in for a second here. I'm looking at the chat. Is this the stupid horror energy? It's on here. Because like I gotta say, if that is, I'm a little celebrity struck right now.
Oh, I think it's like the person that we're used to interacting with in chats who goes by that name. So everywhere else I see her,
I see them come up all the time on Modern Day Debate. So
the one and only, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Well, thank you. Like I said, so thanks for being here.
Now, Jay, I respect you. Up till
now you're so, yeah. You know, Guts at Gibbon didn't do it. Derek from Myth Vision, nah. Pine Creek, who gives a fuck about that? But one stupid horror energy is in the house. Cliff is ready to go. Cliff, I see you. I see what you're about. All right. So look, guys, I'm just excited to share Cliff with you guys, right? That was the point of all that song and dance, was to say I'm so excited to give you guys more Cliff, because this is one of my guys. The other thing I wanted to say is, we're these people, right? So whereas a lot of people won't engage you in this stuff, a lot of people in our field don't think this stuff is interesting. We actually do think this stuff is interesting. We actually do hang out in those Discords. We actually do watch those YouTubers. And so we will have a little bit of fun with that from time to time. And also, we love this digital evolution stuff. I was explaining this to Mike. One time, Cliff and I got together because I was having like technical difficulties or something. And I don't know what time we got together. Cliff might have been 10 or 11. It was real late, right? It was like me, you, and Jory, and then Jory helped me out, and then Jory fucked off or whatever. And then me and you were just sitting there chilling, talking, you know, digital evolution and experiments, and then chit-chatting, right? And like, we were just kicking it for hours, right? Like, late as fuck at night, just having fun. And I was like, yo, like, me and Cliff are about that life. Like, of our own volition. Like, you don't have to twist our arm to do our shit and to get us into talking about this stuff. We love our work. We're about these systems. He's trying to get better. I'm trying to learn more. Go ahead.
I think that was the night where I was like, we were chatting about something, and I was like, okay, so then you know about ACA and you know about Modern Day Debate.
Yeah, we just got it going. Yeah.
So you saw this, and we were like, oh damn, we're on the same page.
Yeah, that was super fun. So that would have been such a fun stream had we been streaming back then, right? But I kind of used that to tell Mike, and now I'm using to share with the audience, is like, people like John Maddox, and they don't realize what they're up against sometimes, because we're literally about this life. Like, we do this every day. This is our job, and it's not our job because it has to be our job. We both have lots of professional options. This is the thing we both decided we want to be doing with our time and we're passionate about. So you're going to have to get up pretty early in the morning indeed if you think you're going to call us bullshit. And we're not going to fight back and have the data and the evidence to back up what we're talking about. Because again, we've given of our lives to earn and pay our dues in this field to get where we're at, and we're just getting started. But Cliff, I got to show you off. I want Cliff to start a full-blown Cliff the Blacksmith channel where he... But since he won't, show off some stuff. Cliff, show us some blacksmithing stuff.
I'm gonna show little itty bitty. This is the A Life Award.
Look at that.
For this year. that thing.
What? That's the award, Cliff. Come on, wait, no, bring it back. Oh my goodness.
This is the cool one. This is the cool one. This is the one for I'm doing these now. Making these this week. This is the one from last.
Oh, hang on. You gotta get full screen. There we go. Oh my goodness. Oh, look at the artwork, folks. Cliff, show him the big piece from the thing.
Well, the big what?
Share the Scrap Fest piece.
Let me go get it.
Guys, y'all saw the awards though. Come on, those are real awards in our field. Guys, Cliff is not just out here literally manually building evolving systems with his bare hands. He is building the actual awards that are used in our field in his home blacksmithing workshop. Dog, we so deep in this evolutionary game. We are out here. We do this. You done fucked up now. You've messed with the wrong people. Cliff, go ahead and show him are you back here? Did you pull it back? I'll bring it back up when you share it.
I gotta find it here. Let's see. Here it is. All right. I'll draw. I got a couple of good images here. Let's see. Is this one any good? It's pretty good. It's taking it a hot minute to download. There we go. All right.
Yeah. No worries. Take your time. You're good. Blacksmithing is cool. Exactly. And I don't care. That's some real, like, come on, y'all. Like, it doesn't matter if you're talking now, 5,000 years from now or 5,000 years ago, right? It's pretty good to know a blacksmith. Like, you know, if you knew a blacksmith, you were like, let me get you a cup of Java or whatever it was, right? Because a dude that could craft you a dude that can make you a sword is useful.
Did you already put it up there?
Wait, sorry. I took I kind of accidentally.
Oh, no, I didn't. I got it. Oh, no, I did. Okay.
All right, here we go.
I shared it.
Okay. Also, Cliff, I'm going to elevate your privileges so that you get like to more like backstagey stuff, and I'm going to elevate you beyond guests for a restream. But yeah, guys, this is super cool. All right, so can we get a zoom? Can we get a zoom in on that? Yo, look at this, guys. All right, go ahead. Talk to the people about the piece.
This is the whole thing. Yeah, this is for Scrap Fest. It's a thing that they do in Lansing here in Michigan. It's an art competition where they give artists an hour in a scrapyard to collect scrap metal, and then you have a month to turn it into art. And I always go down, like, I go deep on blacksmithing stuff. So this was my piece for this year. And it's like the bottom is kind of these grassy stalks. These are probably like 4 feet long, the longer ones. The short ones are like maybe a foot or two long. And then I did like these flowers on top.
Whoa, hang on. Zach's in the house. Zach's a MSU grad student. Zach said, I was at this festival. It was super cool. Oh, amazing work. It's a small world after all. Go ahead.
There you go. Yeah. But yeah, so these were the flowers up on top. But this is all hand forged from sheet metal and rod. It was a fun project. It took a full week. I started working on it on a Saturday night, and I was done the Friday night, and then I had to turn it in the next morning. So it was a long week.
Oh wow!
But yeah, this is the stuff I like to do.
You got a little slideshow too, right?
I got some. You want like the whole? Oh my.
Cliff, you got to show them a little bit. You got to show them. We're always gonna have a little bit of blacksmithing time, so this is the time to show this piece. Because in every broadcast, I'm gonna have you showing off something.
Yeah. All right. Here you go. So this shows some of the process for making it. So this was the morning before I dropped it off. This is just, you can see how big it is on a pallet jack, and then there's a close up looking at the flowers on top.
Oh, that's such a beautiful shot. Oh my goodness.
That's just when I was just manufacturing the parts. There is that was like this shot and this shot was when I got it done. This is about 2:00 in the morning on Friday.
Oh my
before I have to turn it in.
Guys, that's the shop.
I had the whole thing done, and oh yeah, that's my shop. So there's the forge back here. That's the forge. Power hammer is actually right behind it's like right behind the stock. That's the plasma cutter. There's the tanks for the
metal noodles.
Propane oxy. But this was like the manufacture process. So that's one of the leaves. These are the parts, like when I'm making the parts. So these are the pedals. This is the center. There's the power hammer. So
guys, this is all on Cliff's house, Cliff's master palace, guys. And just to give you guys a clue of what's going on here, Cliff bought this beautiful house in Mason, Michigan. I always tell people I actually secretly love Mason, Michigan, and the reason is because Cliff's beautiful house in the country. It's so fun to visit. It's really, really peaceful out there. And this used to be an airport hangar, right? That was on the property, and then you converted it. And then he converted it into a shop. All right, go ahead. I just wanted to give them a feel for your property there. It's really gorgeous.
Oh, I'm just going through the slides. So this is the whole thing disassembled. So because I have a little station wagon, I had to make sure it would fit in my car. So this is like,
oh, you're testing the fit. You're making sure you can get it in there.
Yeah, it was actually when I was dropping it off. This is how the base works. So it's got like a bunch of pipes. And all the leaves and the main stem go in these pipes, and that's the base on those. And then
this is how you forged it to fit together. Oh, that's super cool. Those are the connect. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Cliff, do you draw this stuff out, or do you how much design what's your design process like?
Camera.
Hang on, you just yeah, there you go. There you go.
All right, can we turn my camera back on?
All right. So
yeah, I was trying to play a video and it's not.
No worries. But yeah, the chat was loving it.
Yeah.
Chat was loving it. Oh yeah, what's that?
So anyway, that what was that?
Yeah, I said the chat was loving that. That was awesome, man. That was super dope. Thanks for sharing that. So when we do this, I'm gonna have you keep sharing stuff and showing off stuff until you finally break down. And
there we go. Now I'm
all right. Yeah, I said.
Yeah.
We got to get you a better. We got to get you a better camera. How do you? We got to get you like a nice 1080p streaming setup.
I'm gonna hold on. I'm gonna back there.
I think I have a sneaky suspicion, Cliff.
Yeah, I gotta get back to the later.
What?
No, I gotta get back to writing, but I'm gonna give you guys a link. I think I made the link to the photos and the videos public.
Sure.
I can just give you the link to that.
Red Ness.
I wanted to touch. What are we working on Wednesday? What's the plan?
Wednesday, I guess. Let's do. I think we should do Baby's First Berry World, and then we can talk about whatever we're gonna do for our first paper. Because, like I said, let's just start from scratch, but do it with an audience. So we'll say, hey Jay, what you got on Baby's First Berry World? Even if it's rudimentary, we'll use that and talk about what you do going forward.
Yeah. Should we do the 15-minute intro to Markov brains?
Yeah, go for it. I would love that. That would be perfect because that would give people. What did you say? Oh, pull the link up.
Then they can know what we're.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll do that. That covers Markov brains, and then I'll explain when we talk about brains, what we mean.
Okay.
And then I'll cover Berry World, and then we can talk about how you go about building.
Where did you put it?
That is what I'm. How do I post?
I don't think you can as a guest, so you can put it in the private chat. You can put it in the private chat.
Here,
Yeah. Put in the private
If
chat.
that link works, I think.
All right. Yeah. Oh, this is the link to Scrapfest. Yeah, this works. Yep. All right. So now I'll drop that.
This is my photos, but at the end I've got some movies. You can see the process.
All right. So what I'll do is
And then as far as somebody was asking if I have a channel. Go ahead. No.
I was just saying I was going to drop it in the chat. Go ahead. Talk about your channel.
So when you're asking if I have a channel, I have I've got some stuff on YouTube, but I don't do anything very regularly. On Reddit and Discord, when I'm on there, which again is pretty rarely, I go by Art and Science. And on YouTube, I think I just go by my own name. I don't even try to.
Cliff, what I'll do too is if you want, and it's just totally up to you, it doesn't matter to me either way, but we can mirror these on your channel. I can add it to the places we go live if you want, or if you want to ever do like, hey Jay, I want to do this or that on my channel, just let me know. Also, I'll set up some links. So I have donation links down below. These broadcasts are on all my channel, but I'll also set up something that's called like donate to Jay and Cliff or whatever, and whatever people donate to that, we'll split. That's just kind of how I do things, because there's a lot of people that are trying to help my channel grow. My goal is to help other people grow. Real quick, guys, just want to send a shout out. We've been talking a lot about what I want to do, and I've been also kind of explaining some of this stuff to Cliff. Cliff, there's another angle to this. That's the other ace up my sleeve, right? The one up here, the ace up my right sleeve, is Rob Pennock. The ace up my left sleeve, though, is the fact that I don't want my only specialty to be digital evolution, right? My other specialty is science and multimedia. And I've been doing sound my whole life, right? I've been a sound guy my life. I've been a live musician my whole life. I've worked in production, right? And it's kind of second generation. My dad used to own a cable company. He's a producer. He's been a cable television host in New Jersey for, 35 years, more than my whole life. I'm always reading old numbers off his resume, probably 40 years at this point. And he's also a college administrator, right? So my dad works on political campaigns, hosts television shows, but is also on the board of trustees at a county college in New Jersey, right? So for me, what you guys are helping me with is like an amazing demonstration. What is the sound coming in? Oh, that's from the video. Okay. What you guys are helping me with is an amazing demonstration of a way that I can do science and multimedia and help other people with it. So I'm hoping to help other people start channels, help other people start making videos, do a lot of production and behind the stream scene stuff, right? We do a lot of that over on my channel. So all of this helps, guys, and your engagement in the chat, above all, is a tremendous asset to me. So thank you, guys. And I want to help Cliff do more stuff. Anyway, Cliff, go ahead. You said that we're going to do the Markov brain thing. I was going to say
we'll do that next week on YouTube. I'm just Clifford Bohm.
Oh, okay.
That's it. It's just me.
Send me a link in the private chat and I'll drop it so people can just click on it and then do it.
I don't even know how to. Oh, I see. I go to my.
I think I can update the description and I'll put it in the description.
I don't know if this works. Well, that'll get you there anyway.
But yeah, Cliff, also I think we'll start going through and we can also start making clips and stuff like that. Because if we start making little clips and stuff from this show, it'll be great. Thank you so much for your time, for doing this with me. This was super fun. Okay.
I just want to say to Rebel on the way out the door that the incredible biodiversity, complexity, intricate detail, and beauty to life, blah, blah, blah. We got it figured out, man. I'm sorry, but we do.
Oh!
You got to study, man. You just got to do some reading.
Woo!
All right. And with that, if I had a mic, I'd drop.
And with that, guys, not only is Cliff leaving, I'm leaving. I got a 4:00 meeting with Rob. I'm going live afterwards to do some more stuff, and we'll chill tonight. We'll do some gaming. I'll also get set up for my coding and stuff. Monday's like my low energy day because I work hard all fucking weekend, and then I get into the serious business of things on Tuesday. But actually, I'll do a little bit of MAPE stuff today because I'll get everything set up and going, and I'll have a little fun with that before I do that. Anyway, guys, I'm a mic drop, and that was so beautiful. I'm getting out of here. In the name of the Darwin, the Dawkins, and the Christopher Hitchens, science bless you all.